Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Donnie Griggs, and it is an absolute privilege to get to share with you. I'm sorry it's not in person. Man, COVID has made everything so difficult, but I'm glad for technology. We can still get a chance to encourage each other, and I hope this encourages you. So just a little bit about me really quick. My name's Donnie, and I'm a husband to my wife, Jill. We've been married for about 14 years, and we've got two boys. One's 6, his name is Wyatt, and one's 9, his name is Jed. And they are wide open, like hunting, fishing, loving every day, that whole kind of thing. So it's fun being their dad. Got a dog named Trigger. We duck hunt with him a lot. And I'm a church planter as well. I planted a church called One Harbor in my hometown back in 2009, early 2009. Me and my wife did. Started in a living room, no money. Like literally no money, 6, 7 people, and really kind of clueless, but just a huge heart to see Jesus glorified in our small town, and kind of one thing's led to another. And so now the church has grown quite a bit, and we're 4 locations, but essentially I'm still a church planter at heart. And then along the way, I wrote a book called Small Town Jesus, which some of that will kind of come out in this, just designed to try to help us take small town rural ministry seriously, like we would take ministry anywhere. And so that's a little bit about me. How this whole thing grabbed my heart. Well, I mean, I was born and raised in a small town, so I think it was always in there, and I, through the years after I graduated high school, I visited cities and, lived, adjacent to cities and all the rest, but it just like never left. Like it's just who I am, and so probably a lot of you can identify with that. And so in that way, it was kind of always there in my heart, but it was a trip back home. I was living in California where I met my wife. We'd gotten married, and then we came here to visit, and this little small coastal town off, kind of like the bottom of the Outer Banks, this island chain off North Carolina. We came here to visit, and gosh, I just ran into so many buddies who I knew in high school, knew growing up, who just were not doing well. And got on a plane to head back to California. I was working at a church there. We were actually planning to move to South Africa, and I was learning Zulu, trying to get ready for that whole thing. And we got on that plane, and God just broke our heart. It's the best way I can describe it. He just broke our heart for this town and these people. And actually I opened up the Bible. I did the thing you're not supposed to do, the sort of like open point, like on the Bible verses, but I did it. And it fell to that passage where Jesus, he arrives by boat and he sees this crowd. The Message version says that they were harassed and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd, and he stayed and taught them many things. So that's what happened. God broke our heart, and within a few months' time, we had packed up everything we had and moved across country and showed up to start this little church called One Harbor, and to see what God was going to do. So as I got into the church plant, though, I started to, I'm doing what lots of people do. You try to read books, and you try to go to conferences, and you try to learn things. And, at the time, kind of 2009, early 2010, everything I was exposed to was pretty geared towards urban ministry, pretty urban-centric or suburban, maybe. And I just started to really struggle to find resources and help to do ministry in a way that felt appropriate for the context I was in. And kind of even with that, the metrics were really I felt like skewed towards, a much larger setting. So, I'd hear things like you got to break the 200 barrier, but I mean, what if your town's not 200 people? How do you break the 200 barrier? And the average size church in America is 70. Well, that doesn't sound very average if your town's like 150. It sounds like you're like Joel Osteen basically in that town. So all these kinds of things were rolling around in there, and then I began to realize what a massive mission field there was, just in our region. Lots of little towns. And then, sort of thinking about the nation that we live in, it's really a nation of small towns with some cities sort of speckled around. And I think I was confronted with this reality that I don't think that this is being taken seriously. I don't think that when I think about the little towns all around where we live, I mean, we're just one little church, but I don't think the Calvary's riding in. I think that probably a lot of the folks who are getting trained up to go and start new works, new churches, are probably flooding into cities and suburban areas. And a lot of that for really good reason. I mean, we need lots and lots of really great, churches and gospel ministry, everywhere. And we certainly need it in big cities and suburban areas. But I just felt like, man, I feel like we're kind of getting overlooked here. Or maybe people are showing up in rural small towns, and it's really like a stepping stone to something more. Like maybe their denomination or their network doesn't want to send them to a big city, so they start them off in a small town. So they kind of cut their teeth on small town folks on their way up the ladder. And maybe they'll land somewhere someday with a Target and some really fancy coffee shops. And this stuff just bothered me. And so, that kind of coupled with, I felt like when you heard about small towns and rural places, at the time at least, it felt very idyllic. It felt like every article was like, rolling like hayfields or, bubbling little creeks. And it just felt like what we thought of small town rural was like, oh, it's just like, one big, bed and breakfast. I mean, just a great place to hang out, no problems at all. Everything's peaceful, everything's wonderful. And that's just not true. And I think that sort of false understanding of the nature of the situation in small towns and rural places was really counterproductive to the mission, because we're not going to likely captivate folks to want to go and take the gospel seriously in small towns and rural places if they don't think there's any need to. I mean, if they think everything's great, everyone loves Jesus, we all go to church, and then we have picnics, like if that's what they think, then nothing's really going to change. So, again, just all of these things like were gripping my heart. I mean, this reality that, towns like ours and like yours, I'm sure, they are beautiful. I can see why people would want to take photos of them and come visit them. They're beautiful, don't get me wrong, but man, they're also broken, really broken. And not like with just because they're small towns doesn't mean the problems are small. Actually, the problems are huge. They're massive. They're massive problems that only Jesus can solve. Only Jesus can fix. So just all this stuff. I mean, gosh, these are just like any people anywhere in the world. They're made in God's image. We're supposed to prioritize people everywhere, And so those things just brewed and brewed to a point where I finally wrote a book about it, and then began to get opportunities to speak and to encourage and to coach and to try to help see some of this change. And I'm really actually thankful for how much traction all of that's gotten. It's not just me, it's other guys, but it's been great. I've had some opportunities over the last several years to speak at seminaries and different conferences, and I feel like, again, it's not just me, obviously. I mean, you guys are involved as well. We're all sort of like in this together, but as I look over my shoulder, I'm encouraged at least that it feels like most networks or denominations, even seminaries and Bible colleges, these are starting to take this kind of thing seriously, and that's a good thing, I think. How is God still nurturing my heart for small town ministry? Well, I'm still doing small town ministries. That's a constant nurturing. It's in this last season leading through COVID and all the aside from COVID, all the other things within 2020, the sort of the social implications, of 2020, the racial, challenges that we're facing as a culture, the political challenges we're facing as a culture. I mean, those things, man, they are front and center in small town, rural places. And so that's been, that's I think a way of God continuing to nurture my heart. It's not like the work's done. We're not even close. If the work was done, Jesus would be back. So I'm continually nurtured just by still being in small town ministry. Myself, I think another couple ways is just through relationships I've built through the years, friendships with other people who are in small town ministry, rural places. And so just hearing their constant, successes and struggles, weeping with them, rejoicing with them, continues to nurture my heart. And then I think just, relationships where I'm having a chance to coach, come alongside and help strengthen and encourage people who are in ministry. Opportunities like this, it reminds me, it nurtures my heart again, getting to talk to you about it. And so those are some things. And I think the more I kind of get out and get around, the more too I'm still seeing just this is such a massive mission field. I was just in a small town this last week, and I hadn't been up there in a long time, and I was just struck all over again by all those things. Man, this place is beautiful, but it's broken. There's people everywhere that I don't think any future church planner is even got them on the radar. But these people need Jesus. That's the only hope for them. Who's going to reach them? Who's going to go? Like that sort of like thing brews all over again every time I go to another small town or drive through a small town. And ours is an interesting mission field. It's kind of like Europe, because our mission field is full of church buildings. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but God's still very much nurturing my heart for it. I just wanted to close with just a couple of words of encouragement for you. I love that you're taking this seriously, because that's what we need. We don't need second-rate ministers. We don't need second-rate gospel. We need the real thing in small towns and rural places. We need the best, like the best of the gospel. We need it. Like you would need it anywhere. We need it. We need it in small towns, and we don't need it a little bit less because our people are kind of nice. They don't drink, cuss, chew, or go with girls who do. No, we need the gospel. We don't need folks seeing small town, rural places as a stepping stone to something bigger and better. Man, that's cruel, actually. And people deserve better than that. People everywhere deserve to be taken seriously. They deserve to be loved and led by people who take the gospel seriously and take them seriously. Matthew 9:35, we get a glimpse of Jesus at ministry, and there's like a lot of these. Once you go looking for them, you probably already have. But in Matthew 9:35, I love how succinctly it says that Jesus went into all the towns and villages. So these are places with walls, and these are little like unwalled, podunk kind of poor little areas. So we see him going into villages, and he goes and he says he taught them, he proclaimed the kingdom, he healed every disease, and I just love that they got Jesus. I love that what we don't see is Jesus going, let me think strategically here. Let's see, you're not that great. You're kind of a subclass preacher, leader. Why don't you go over there to those little small people and, do that little small thing? Like, man, I love that they got the real Jesus. Because that's what they needed. They didn't need a second-rate version. They needed they needed a real Jesus. And so, man, my encouragement to you is to see it like that. The real Jesus could have put you anywhere. Acts 17 said he knows all the times and all the places of everywhere like we would live. He predetermined that stuff, and God predetermined that me and you would live where we're living. And that's his way of getting himself to those around us, to getting the real Jesus to the folks around us in small towns and rural places. All these villages, quote unquote, they still need Jesus. He alone. And so, man, just keep holding him out, keep swinging for the fences, keep exposing idols. Our idols are maybe a little different than some other places. I think we're probably, pretty likely to have some political idols that folks are putting their hope in that just are not going to save. We're probably more likely to have a morality kind of based idol where folks are going to put their hope in trying to do good and be good, and instead of seeing Jesus as the only one who was ever good. So that's a tough one for us. And I think again, recreation, it's hunting, fishing, whatever it is. A lot of us are probably in areas where folks are trying to find refuge in that, and in a kind of way that's never going to deliver. And so in that and so much more, obviously, addiction and so many issues that we're facing in rural America with those things. I'm also a chaplain for our local fire department and EMS, so I run all those really hard, sad calls. And even in just in our little town, I've been to like 4 overdoses in a day. So man, we just the only hope is Jesus, and we've got it, and he's put us here to give it. So man, just that's my encouragement to you. Swing for the fences. Take it seriously. Don't grow weary. I just keep hearing that like ringing in my ear. And this last season has really tested all of us in that. But just don't grow weary. Let's not grow weary. In Luke 19, Jesus is giving he tells the parable of the 10 minas. And he says there at the beginning, he says he gave them, he entrusted them, with these minas. And it says he told them to engage in business until he returned. And that's just been like a real challenge for me lately. This last year it's felt like a punch in the gut after a punch in the gut after a punch in the gut. But until he comes back, or until we, our life is taken, I think that's our charge, to engage in business until he comes back. Engage in business until he returns. Keep your hands on the plow. Make the most of every opportunity. Jesus will see us through this season and whatever else comes. God bless you guys.